And we are live. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Beyond the 90. And it's gone transfer crazy at the moment over the last 24 hours. There's been silence for quite a while after the Cassidy signing. And, well, let's get into it. I mean, we've got Mark back on the channel. Mark, thanks for joining. How are you?
Good, mate. Yeah, my hair's absolutely terrible, though. I didn't realise till I joined this link. So apologies to all the ladies out there, really. That's all I can say.
All two of them. Yeah, but thank you very much. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you join. And thanks for coming on again. How are you doing and how are you feeling about like the transfer rooms at the moment?
Yeah, I'm all good. It's almost, we've had sort of after, as you mentioned, the Caicedo deal came in, and then it's been a little bit of a quiet before the storm of today's just been absolutely mental, non-stop transfer links. The thing is, you quite often get links throughout the day, but there's been a lot of good links and credible links. Like, it's not as if it's like that, what's his name, in the indie account or whatever it is, but sort of everyone says works at KFC. It's been like genuinely good accounts.
You're right. And speaking of genuinely good accounts, let's kick off with the first one that's probably going to happen most likely. Fabrizio Romano tweets out again about Victor Christensen going to join Bologna. I think that's how you say it anyway. In terms of a 4-year, so a loan and then an option for 4 years after the contract. Danish, again, looks like he's going to sign a deal at the moment with that team. Mark, he was a little bit of a fan favorite for a while, and I am going to miss him. However, even under Dean Smith, he fell out of favour after a period of time.
Yeah, he did. You know, what we've got to trust at the minute is that Enzo wants what he wants, doesn't he? And if you don't fit his plans, then unfortunately the only place to go is out the door. So I'm a bit sad to see him on his way out, really. But I can understand why he is. He's quite a saleable asset. He probably hasn't got much of a wage in terms of some of the other players that we're trying to get rid of at the moment. So I can understand the deal. I think he'll do really well in Serie A. I think he'll end up staying there permanently.
I think, yeah, because considering it's been not even 7 months since he joined now, and he's already out the door. But again, I like the player. I think he's really good. I think he offered a lot when we first joined, but he's just not found his footing. And I remember even in the summer where a lot of the players went quiet, he was one of the first players to break his silence and go, right, I'm going to be fighting for my place. And that's exactly what we needed coming into the beginning of the season. But like that, he looks like he's leaving.
It does, and he's one of those that I think there's a good young player there, but he's almost a throwback kind of fullback, someone who's just going to get down the line, cross it in. It's like, as Mark says, Enzo knows what he wants and he knows what he needs in his players, and that's not what he wants from Christensen. So, like, he's one of those players as well. Obviously, one of the 3 that we brought in January. How mad is it that we spent 4 million in January and we could be getting no return on any of that? But yeah, he's a good player. I think he'll do well in Italy. But one thing that I worry about with this loan deal is how many times have we seen loans to the Serie A where there's an option to buy, and then we get to a point where they've got to buy the player, then still haggling and negotiating for another few million off, like Torino did with Dennis Pratt, because they had their price set in stone before he went, and they were still haggling and negotiating because there's not a lot of money in Italian football. You look at Juventus, who are one of the giants of Italian football. They're going to lose out onto players to Fulham in terms of Castagna. Like, Fulham have got more financial power than probably the 3rd biggest club in Italy. So sort of shows the state of Italian football, really.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I was going to say as well, Mark. The fact that he's a young player, great young player, but again, dealing with Italian clubs, I think notoriously has just been awful in terms of just they penny pinch for every single penny they could potentially get off before they sign a player.
There's just no money out there, is there? Like Hans just said, it's just not the same ballpark really as the Premier League. So I think we're almost fortunate with Castagna. I know we'll talk about him in a bit, but that there is a Premier League team that wants to take him, because you get a bit more bang for your buck with those. Serie A, like you've said, you can, even if he has a successful spell there, you can almost imagine that they'll come back and try and renegotiate a lower price. I don't even know what the price is that's been agreed on this one, do you?
No, I've seen rumours of it being in between 8 and 10 million, but how true that is, but it sounds about right, doesn't it?
That's a loss for us, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just 12 million he cost, didn't he? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also
Awful.
he's just on a deal as well. So he's on a 5-year deal. So it's not exactly like we could just, unless you don't really buy players out of their contract, because I think we're still quite broke at the moment in terms of that. But yeah, that's one that's pretty much confirmed. Well, pretty much confirmed, as Richard and Rhino was saying. We've got another few that are happening as well. This one is less, again, probably going to get less credible as we go along, but I don't think this one happening as much. But Leicester City, again, Sports PO, who I know is not the most credible journalist in the world, but come out of kind of nowhere. Patson Daka is ready to accept a £23 million offer. And I mean, for this one, I can't see it happening because it's not even one that's been rumored around. It's just come out of absolute nowhere. But what are your thoughts on it as well?
Well, the way that it's worded, it says Leicester City are ready to accept a £23 million offer. I'm ready to accept a double pay rise. It's not going to happen. Like, there's got to be demand for that to happen. It's like saying to Mark here, like, would you like your wages doubled? See,
Yes, please.
willing to accept it. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Are we sure it's not a £2.3 million offer?
Is there a decimal missing?
Yeah, there must be, because there's no way that we get that sort of money back for Patson Daka. I've been trying to pimp him out on Twitter all day to any Everton account that's listening.
Yeah, the thing is, I think there's a good player in there. It'll be interesting to see what happens if he stays at the end of the because again, there's not a lot of rumours at the moment. Everton, I think they're signing Che Adams, isn't it? Or that's what the rumour was more likely.
They had a bid rejected for Che Adams. Southampton are holding out, I think, for 18 million instead of 12.
Ooh, it's quite a bit. And I think he's one of the top strikers in the Championship as well at the moment.
He is, but they've also signed a young lad from Sporting Lisbon as well as a striker. So,
yeah,
I don't think they'll be as desperate.
They need to sign about 20 players, though, don't they?
Yeah.
They're rank.
They are awful. Like, you know what's even worse, though, about that? We were worse than them last year because we've been relegated. And mate, that's the same team that stayed up last year and we went down. So we're even worse than they were.
I know, but the thing is, at least it's given us some hope. There's more hope in the King Power Stadium. If you're in an Everton position, they're like, right, another season of this, lads, because again, it's nothing's going to change. The thing is, we've gone down and we're feeling the benefits of kind of coming back up now. But like we feel like we're actually rejuvenating with the new mentality with that. With what they're doing, it's just the one I've said. It's like you and a kid has a tooth and it's just hanging on for dear life. Just need to be yanked out and then let it regrow. Because that's the situation is at the moment.
I do my little cheeky plug. I do my Championship panel show on Sunday. And Michael, who's a Sunderland fan, has said that it's very similar to what they were a few years ago. And that, like, however big the club is, there's only so long you can keep sort of flirting with that relegation spot before it gets you. And the longer they flirt with it and it doesn't look like changing, like where they keep spending seasons sort of 17th, 16th and just scraping away with it, when it does catch them, they're going to be in a right state. And I think it will be this year. And obviously, don't want to talk too much about Everton, but they're moving into Bramley Moor Dock next year is their plan, isn't it? So it would be quite entertaining if they started their new stadium in the Championship.
I mean, at the same time, it is inevitable as well, the fact that they're just holding on. There are three worst teams that kind of, but you can only hold on so long, Mark, before it just all catches up with you. And also, there's a thing of, well, they've not been relegated for the Premier League. It's for a fan outside the top six, like, come join us. You need to have your battle scars almost, rite of passage.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we don't stay down too long, the Championship's all good fun until you get stuck down there for 10 years, isn't it? And then it's not as much fun.
Stoke.
It's while it's a novelty, absolutely, it's good fun. And actually, to come down and have the chance to rebuild in the Championship is probably slightly easier to do, and slightly less pressure than staying up and trying to do it. So if Enzo was at the club and we were in the Premier League now, I think he'd be under a lot more pressure to get some results, whereas it's a bit easier to come by results in the Championship. So, yeah, I'm enjoying the Championship so far. I just don't want it to last too long.
We've got 40. I can't do maths. 45, 43. Yes, told you can't do maths. Can't take away 3 from 40.
It's a difficult one, that, isn't it?
Here for a good time, not a long time.
Just like hopefully us in the Championship, eh? But coming on to this again, I'm going to play a little bit of a video as well about Sky Sports got an update with a few, and there's quite a bit to talk about in there in the 30 seconds or so. So I'll give that a play, and then we'll have a conversation about some of them as well. Some of the players they're talking about. Let's have a play.
For some transfer news from the Championship, Leicester City want to sign 2 wingers before the end of the window. They're working on deals for Sporting Lisbon's Ishaku Fatawu and Galatasaray's Yunus Akgun. Fatawu is expected to be a loan, while the conditions of the signing of Akgun is more likely to be a permanent move. Leicester also keen on QPR's Ilias Chair. Fullback Timothy Castagna is expected to be next to leave, with Fulham in advanced talks to bring the Belgium international to Craven Cottage.
So much to talk about in that. I mean, first of all, there's a player that's cropped out of absolutely nowhere. Still can't pronounce it. Abdul Itawa, I think he is, Mark. Again, I can't expect to know too much about him. And correct me on Twitter already, going a release clause isn't the same thing as actually what they're going to sell him for. But again, just from what you've heard, I mean, the last couple of weeks, Yunus has been banging on, but this new lad as well, from Sporting Lisbon, looks pretty good, right?
Yeah, I think any wing is exciting, aren't they, for us? So, Under was quite exciting. Lookman was quite exciting. Tete was quite exciting. It's until they turn up and play, that's when we're going to find out. I think there's a realisation that we can't go through the season with Wanya Marcel as our only option at right wing. I'm not even sure if he's a natural right winger. So there's clearly, this lad's a Ghana international. He's played at a World Cup. And he's broken into the sporting team over the last sort of 12 months. So, we've signed a couple of players from Sporting before, so what could go wrong?
Oh, yeah, we have, haven't we? Oh, jeez. And that was a 50 million for both, wasn't it?
Yeah.
14 seconds could go wrong.
Yeah. Let's not leave it till the last day. It's good, though, isn't it? It's good that we're getting linked with these players at the moment, and not just one of them. It looks like there's going to be a couple of wingers coming, which would be great.
Yeah, and something they mentioned signing 2 wingers as part of this as well. So it's Haku as one, and then Yunus Akgun as another one. But in terms of that, and is that the profile of player that you think we need? Because one thing I've criticised a little bit is because we don't have as much leadership as potential, especially with Cody at the side, as we need. Is that the right players you think are the right profile players to bring in for this one?
100%. And I've been banging on about profile of players for the last 18 months. So I think it's exactly what we need. And a little bit about Isaka Fatawa, which I've definitely butchered the name, but I'm have a go. But
let's call him Isaacs.
A bit easier, isn't it? But something that some fans were saying on Twitter is some Ghana fans were that there's a lot of talent there, but he's very raw and he's going to take sort of a lot of time and patience. Like, he's rapid apparently, and like you can see that he's got sort of those right ideas. It's just sort of as you would expect with an 18-year-old, you're going to need to have patience with him. You're going to need to sort of not get on his back, and ultimately it's like he's 18. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to be someone that's going to come in straight away and be like the next Mbappe. So he needs to be given time. Something I didn't realise either, and I found this out in my video earlier today by a lot of angry Sporting fans in my comments, is they're not actually called Sporting Lisbon anymore. They've changed their club's name to Sporting Club de Portugal. Which
Sporting Lisbon it is.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like I didn't know this happened, and I went round the stadium last week or 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I've had loads of angry comments. It's not Sporting Lisbon. It's not.
Interesting. Well, again, we'll call them that when what's it called? Fatawa joins as well. In terms of that, but Mark, again, do you think this is the right kind of profile of player that we'll be looking for? Because again, I'm with you in terms of it looks like that Marcel, as good as he is, again, he's going to need bedding in. He's going to have a lack of time as well. But also the fact that we're going after 2 is for me quite intriguing as well, because I normally for these guys there's a like for like player, but it looks like we're going for both.
Yeah, I think we will go for both. I don't think you can expect Mavadini to play 46 games over the season and the cup and everything else that goes with it. So you're either looking at taking one of those youngsters over to the left, or playing Albrighton as a game. But for me, his time is sort of coming to a bit of an end now with us, and we need dynamic, quick, young players that suit the system. And I think we get that with both the guy from Sporting and from Yunus Agkun as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Scott was asking as well. Are we any further? I mean, at the moment, so thanks, Trudy and Scott as well. And this one has been for a couple of months now. This one, and there's another one we'll get onto in a bit. There's also been just hanging on for a couple of months. So in terms of this rumor, it seems to be going away. But do you think we're getting closer? And again, he's a little bit older in 23. We've got a bit more experience. But again, is this the kind of player that you think we could bring in as well?
Yeah, he's a bit more, as you say, a bit older, a bit more experienced, but he's still a young player, and he's still a player that comes in at that age that you want him to develop and you want him to improve, which is the profile of players that I've said for basically since we went away from that model that we should be going back to, bringing in these young up-and-coming players and let them improve and develop. But he's a bit further on than what, obviously, the lad from Sporting is, but I'm not going to attempt to say the name again.
Abdul. I'm just going to go Abdul from now on.
Move back.
Yeah, just move back Abdul. Exactly.
Scored a cracking goal that got disallowed, didn't he, last night? Agkun in the Champions League, cutting in from the right, took a couple of players on and then drilled it in at the near post. And I think someone was offside in the line of the goalkeeper. So he was unfortunate, but there won't be a Leicester City fan that's seen that won't be excited by it, because that's exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, it's just that James put in the chat. Watched Galatasaray game yesterday. Is it Malmo they were playing against yesterday?
No, it was someone else in Sweden, wasn't it?
Okay. So anyway, so they were playing against again, but I think he scored a goal that was offside. Looks like he's really good as well. It's looking really good in terms of that. And I think again, fellow Foxes, again, make sure you go subscribe to Mike over there as well. So again, I'll try and put his link down below. He was on the Huddersfield watch as well.
Mulder, Norwegian side, not Swedish.
Yeah, we're getting all of the insults wrong today, aren't we? Just trying to offend everybody. Mold, that was it.
Just a point that's come through on the chat there a minute ago about an option to buy for both of them. It's quite interesting that that's the way that those deals will be structured. They've got to play more than 50%. So it puts us in the driving seat, doesn't it, of seeing whether we like them or not. I imagine most of the outgoings will be loan with options as well. So they'll be sort of linked to those players that are going. But it gives us a chance to have a look at them and see if they fit. And if they don't, then we won't keep them. And
this is the thing, and so it's a really good point, because again, we've had this option to buy. I think with Under had an option to buy, and that's why we just rested him for the whole season. But it's been so long since every year we get a winger in. Is this the time we've got a Marsh replacement? Is this the time? Is this the time? I wasn't going to say that again, but this one, I don't want to say this one feels different, but for some reason under Enzo, it does feel slightly different.
I don't know. I just feel like here we go again, if I'm honest. You get behind them. I'm excited. We've got some new wingers coming in, but I don't want to get my hopes up too much, because every time you do, they always seem to disappoint. But saying that, they both look talented. They both look like they could offer something. So just have to be patient and see with them.
Yeah,
it's definitely a missing part of the jigsaw, isn't it? That right wing position at the moment. It's definitely where I'd say that we've got a bit of weakness compared to a Leeds or a Southampton, who are a bit more balanced in those areas.
Yeah, and I think that's an area. Go on, Ant.
I was going to say, Leeds' front three looks ridiculous, doesn't it? Now, if they've got Joel Clearout, Sinistera, Nonto, and then obviously Dan James. I know he's a bit of a meme in the Premier League, but he's a good Championship level player.
Well, even Bamford as well, to a certain extent. I know he can't finish for Toffee, but he is dangerous. And they've had a slow start, haven't they, in terms of they've only picked 2 points up. So I look at them and think, great, we're 7 points ahead of them at this stage. That's a handy place to be.
I think, though, with Fark, he's got that much experience, and when it clicks, there will be a point where it clicks with Leeds, I think. But there's so much going on off the pitch there that it's hard to sort of get it going on the pitch. But hopefully, by the time it clicks, we'll be sort of fully in swing with Enzo ball as well, because we're doing really well in terms of results, 3 out of 3 in the league so far. But it's so early, and I look at other teams and it's like they're going to pick up at some point.
They are, but at the same time, we're going to pick up as well. We're still very early days into Enzo, and he says we're at 10-20%, which is, for me, scary in terms of how good we potentially could be. And some of the passes of play, especially in the Coventry game, Huddersfield maybe not so much when they went man to man, and at times Cardiff was a great performance overall. But some of the opportunity to spin round with a couple of wingers, I think, would really be useful. And a couple of other players that have been linked to us, as you mentioned as well. One that's been I've not made a video on it yet, but Ilias Share. I mean, it just keeps hanging around. Do you think, Mark, the rumours aren't going away? However, he seems like, again, another kind of good player that could probably play in that 8 position, but we're probably waiting for probably a player to move out for us to get another player in.
Yeah, I think we're waiting for Dennis Pratt to go, if I'm honest, for probably a similar fee. I think 5 million quid has been quoted for Share, which I think you look at his stats, that's an excellent price for him. He's creating chances. I think he's created 9 chances already this season across the 3 games in a really poor QPR side. So I think he's an exciting player, and he gives us that sprinkling of, without sort of going on about it, sprinkling of Maddison, a player that can just do something a little bit different, get forward, beat a man, and that's maybe what we don't have at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit like the creativity potentially Casadei could bring, but it's just, again, and it's just squad depth, because defensively, I think there's probably one more player we'll get into in a second, but in general, defensively, we look pretty sound, especially with Connor Cody coming back. But in going forward, especially with wingers and the number 8's probably where we're lacking a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's like, in terms of our starting 11, I think it's pretty much set. We might see 1 or 2 more come in, but it's a 46-game season. You can't play the same 11 week after week after week. So, but saying about our midfield as well, someone that I think Mark tweeted about earlier as well, but we've still got to come back, is Sammy Braybrook. So he's someone to keep in mind as well, because he was just on the verge of the team starting to get minutes, and then he got his injury. So, like, I wouldn't be too disheartened if we didn't get another midfielder, just because I think Sammy Braybrook will play. But then it is putting a lot of responsibility on a young player. Say, as a hypothetical, and touch wood, this doesn't happen, but say Harry Winks gets injured for a long period, then it's like you're down to Sammy Braybrook playing every week, which, as much as I want to see him playing, if a young player like that plays every week, it can absolutely finish them off.
Yeah, I think he'll be the Winks understudy, won't he, this season? So he's exciting. Him and Alves, unfortunately, both our 2 brightest talents in the academy, both did their ACLs at pretty much the same time. When Alves got assaulted by that guy from Wolves last season, absolutely disgusting tackle. And then a couple of weeks later, Sammy Braybrook did the same. So disappointing to miss out on both of those so far this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is, again, you're right, it's really disappointing, but at the same time, it feels like we're getting them back. I think was he training for the first time today, or it was in training? Yeah, so it's good to see them back, because, again, seeing what Enzo's done already with Casey McAteer and Wanya Marcel, it's almost like they've been good in pre-season, but the fact that we've seen so many players that are good in pre-season and then just not feature for the first team. They feature for the first team. Their performance has been decent. They're playing, I think, 90 minutes at a time, and they've not looked out of place. I mean, this is, even though we're early on, I can't say enough how just happy I am that the A, young players have been given a chance, and B, some of them are absolutely thriving.
They are, and I think we've got to bear in mind we are now in the Championship, so it's slightly easier to give these younger players an opportunity. But even so, you've got to give huge credit to Enzo Maresca for being brave enough, because it would be very easy for him to put Mark Albrighton on that right wing instead of having the confidence to put Marcel on the right wing. So, but again, that's why I think he's been brought in. You look at his coaching history of developing young players, working with young players and improving young players. As much as I think he's been brought in for the play style and the fact that they see sort of potential in him to become a very good manager, it's also the fact his work with the younger players, because I don't think, and this is something James talks about a lot, Seagrave, we have not seen anywhere near the full potential of that. But with Enzo and with the work with the academy that hopefully he's going to be doing over the next few years, we'll hopefully see a lot more from from the academy and the younger players coming through. But then you need that step from the academy to the first team. And someone like Enzo Maresca, who's had the experience in one of, if not the best academies in the country, will make that step and that sort of transition much easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And exactly, he understands what it takes at one level, which is under 23s, and at the very top of the under 23s level. And obviously with the championship, in almost a blessing in disguise at times, Mark, that we've got the opportunity to go, we can try Sammy Braybrook. If we're trying to hang on again to the Premier League, we can't really do that when you've got Premier League survival like on the card. So again, it is kind of a blessing in disguise in that sense.
It's more difficult to do that in the Premier League for sure. We're sort of blessed with the fact that we might be winning games. It might be easier to introduce players when we are winning games as opposed to when we're struggling. So, yeah, I would agree with that to a certain extent. What we're not, though, is a charity. You know, it's not just for the sakes of being a local lad, you're going to get a game. These need to be really pushing the level of the rest of the first team squad to get in there. And that's why I believe with Alves and Braybrook that they certainly will when they're fit. And hopefully Wanya Marcel and McAteer continue to do so as well. Gives us options, doesn't it? And that's what we need.
Yeah, exactly. It gives us options going forward. And I think another player that was signed, again, another young player that kind of went under the radar, I kind of tweeted about it as well. There's a young player from Aston Villa, kind of rated quite highly. Where was it gone?
I worked with his uncle.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
Yeah, I do work with his uncle, yeah.
Oh, right. I was going to ask how you say he was, but he probably any scoop about that?
Just that he's really excited to be at the club, and he had numerous offers from around the Championship and Premier League, and has decided to come to Leicester. So, yeah, very family orientated young guy. Obviously, British Asian football is going to blow up at some point over the next few years, and we're all ready for that.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping so, because again, I've been massive proponent of that as well, especially with like Hamza Chowdhury in the team, and what was very interesting, even though he's going into the under 21s this season, I think it's changed recently, under 21s, he's given a first team number of 62. So I'm not saying he's going to be introduced, but again, it helps with that squad depth as well.
Yeah, it's one of those, and I'm not going to say like I know a huge amount about him, but if he's highly rated and a few clubs are interested in him, it's got to be a good sign, hasn't it? So obviously wasn't Brunt from Villa as well? So it'd be interesting to see if he's sort of like that, or if he actually does make his way into a first team. But hopefully he'll do well for us. But again, I'm not going to sit here and talk when I ain't got a clue about him.
I think he's an attacking midfielder, isn't he? Quite a physical young lad, and you know he's quite sort of sturdy for his age as well. So a loan to maybe League One or League Two would be great for him this season.
Yeah, I think he might actually potentially. I think he might actually stay within the 21s and then start into. For example, if that was the case, he probably wouldn't have been given a first team number. He would have been given like an under 23. He wouldn't have been given a number at all, and then gone on loan or something. I think at the moment, from what I was listening to an interview with him, and he can play kind of, he's a box to box kind of player, so he can play attacking, he can play number 8, and he can play kind of deeper as well. So he gives that versatility, and that's something again, and pretty much all the players that we're linked with. They can play in multiple positions. So, for example, with Yunus Agun, he can play on the left, or he can play on the kind of right, or he can play more of a striker. Chair can play again multiple positions, cam or left or right in that. And I think that's what they're looking for in terms of a player and profile. Mavididi was kind of the same. He can play in multiple positions, and we're seeing with the likes of Mavididi, he's doing the defensive work as well. When I was watching the game with you, he's doing the defensive work as well, the attacking work. So they're very smart tools. They can do multiple jobs at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that like you look at a lot of modern footballers now, they can play 2 or 3 positions, because like before, your centre halves used to be sort of meatheads of the team and just knock it forward as long as possible. But now you can put most centre halves into midfield that will be able to sort of do a decent job and like have got that technical ability. So like it's becoming more and more of a regular thing that players will be able to play left wing, right wing, or sort of number 10. But what I do like about Mavididi is that, yeah, he can play across all 3 positions, but he's like predominantly a left winger. So I think it's good to have these versatile players. But what worries me slightly, and I'm going to sound a bit negative here, and I don't want to, is I don't want to stand up with a team of jack of all trades and masters of none. It's like you look at the top teams, all of their players are sort of they've got their best position, but they can fill in at other positions. Like you look, for example, you look with Arsenal, like Zinchenko, he's left back but can move into midfield, and it's like he's elite at both of those levels.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're right. So they can again do multiple roles at the same time in the same team, and I think another player that will be able to do multiple roles as well. At the moment, there's not a lot. There's kind of sources thereabouts, but I can't find any up-to-date sources of yet. It looks like again Harwood Bellis. So again, Jay, who's at LCFC.com, kind of mixed bag, but can be quite reliable as well. Said it will be on a permanent again around Harwood Bellis as well. So again, the advances, it will be permanent. I mean, Mark, we're just waiting to get people out the door. But if we get Harwood Bellis, I mean, our defense is looking like I've never been this excited. Well, the last time I was this excited, it was when we got Daka and Samore, so it could go wrong. But yeah, in this Harwood Bellis again knows him from the. There's quite a few teams after him. He was looking for probably a Premier League move. It didn't happen, but because we got the Enzo connection, it's looking more and more likely.
Yeah, it is. I like him. I think he's a talented centre back. He's a bit of a throwback of a centre back, but can play the ball out with his feet. Obviously, he played under Vincent Kompany last season in the Burnley side that won the league, so knows the division. I wouldn't be surprised to see Wout Fast leave in the last week of the window. I've just got a feeling that someone's going to come in, the Premier League team's going to come in and fancy him a sniff at 15, 20 million. And I think Leicester take it. So, you know, in terms of waiting for an outgoing, I'd almost be surprised if Harwood Bellis wasn't the man to replace him. So watch the space on that one. It's just a hunch, but yeah, my hunches are normally better than yours with Samare and Daka.
I mean, that season, I genuinely thought with Lookman coming in, with Bertrand coming in, I was thinking this season we've added squad depth, we're getting a better team. Oh my god! I mean, all of them are pretty much on. I think since Enzo Maresca since Rodgers has signed, the only one that we look like we're keeping is literally Fast. I think every other one has pretty much moved. And Vestergaard, I think, is the only two signed. Who would have thought Vestergaard of all of them? But pretty much everybody that signed is gone or is on the process of moving out.
Ant's a Vestergaard fan, so.
Hey, I've said Vestergaard. Credit where it is due. Vestergaard started the season all right.
He was willing to fight anyone at Northampton who was booing him onto the pitch, weren't you?
But no, with Vestergaard, I don't think he's the best centre-back in the world. But
there's an understatement.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? He's coming in as, fourth choice centre-back this year. He's playing more than he probably already thought he would so far this season. And he's doing a decent job. He's being kept because he's good on the ball. And that's ultimately it. I still stand by Harry Souttar's probably a better defender than him, but it's the other side of his game that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Souttar's finished, isn't he? He's on his way out. I would have thought. I could see him going to Celtic. You know,
it makes sense.
Have you seen Celtic? Coincidentally, have got a mad injury crisis. Isn't it funny? But these injury crisis seem to follow Brendan Rodgers everywhere he goes. But how unlucky! How very convenient. But yeah, I could see Souttar going there.
Sorry,
I was going to say, how mad is it? But we signed all of these players in January, and they could all be they could be off already.
For not very much as well. I think that would end up being a loan with an option. I can't see the option being very much so because again, not much money in the Scottish League, is there? Even for Celtic and Rangers. So that's my little predictions for our centre backs for the next couple of weeks. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm just looking at.
I don't want to lose Wout Fast. I absolutely don't. But I could just see someone coming in with a bid for him.
Yeah. Can't see somebody that I'm saying at the moment. I'm just trying to look at the. Oh, come on, just go away. I'm trying to look at the Brendan Rodgers signings at the moment. Just looking at them now. So they're just looking. So first of all, Fofana gone, Yuri Tillemans gone. Even though that was kind of under Jose Perez gone. Patson Daka looks like he's going. Castagna, Samore, Dennis. Well, Dennis Pratt could be another one that's potentially staying, but he's 50-50. Vestergaard, Farce, Harry Suter, Christensen. Oh my God. It's listed. Who else? Is there any more on the list? James Justin, one that's probably staying. Looking through this list as well. Cengiz Under, yeah, gone. Adama Lukman, gone. It was all just a bit of a, in hindsight, and a bit of a faff, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you know what seems quite funny is everyone sort of said about Lee Congerton, and we said, "Oh, he'll be all right." Atalanta fans can't stand him now.
Really?
They are going absolutely mental about their recruitment. So, all fun and games, isn't it?
Well, wait till the season's over and these players leave, and then we'll say. But yeah, literally gone through all of them there, and literally, so the only one that's real is James Justin, who I believe. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to say that. But coming into again, one of the players that we forgot to mention already, Sky Sports were mentioning about Timothy Castagna. Mark, he's been banging on for ages. It looks like he's going there. They couldn't afford him. And then now he looks like he's going to Fulham for maybe like 10 million. But they're in advanced talks now. And it's just like,
yeah,
finally this is happening now. We don't want, as we mentioned before, another 14-second situation. I'm glad advanced talks are being done now so that we can get them done ahead of the window of the 1st September.
I'd be really interested to know the last time that we sold someone that wasn't a star player or a real asset for a fee, because we struggle so much to get rid of. If Fofana was a star player, wasn't he?
Yeah,
so I'm talking about players that were sort of average players, and I'd put Castagna in that bracket, and we really struggle to move them. You know, he's not wanted to be here, and you could tell that when we went away in pre-season. You could see his body language was not great, and he doesn't seem to want to play for the club this season, which I don't think is a big loss, because I think you've got Ricardo's doing a great job at the minute, and you've got James Justin in that position as well. On the left-hand side, you've got Doyle and potentially Thomas if he stays. So, yeah, I'm not worried about losing Castagna. I think 10 million is a decent-ish price, and we, you know, in terms of where we're at in the window, and Fulham's a good move for him. So it's not the move that he thought he was going to get, though, is it? He thought he was going to end up at Juventus or Arsenal or somewhere like that.
Can I say, just jumping in, sorry, Mark, you know, you said about not selling players. The reason we don't do that is because all of the players that we sell, we put on we put them on ridiculous wages. So unless they're going to go on to a big six club that are going to even up that, then we're the next best thing in terms of a financial package. So it's like Vestergaard, I know, is always a famous example. We doubled his wages, didn't we? So it's like, that's the reason we can never sell on these players for decent money. It's like, as well as we do with the big players, it's those players on that step down, but we probably offer more than other clubs to attract them to Leicester. But then on the flip side of that, when it goes tits up, you're stuck with them.
And that's why Christensen's on his way out now, because he's not followed that mould. I think he was on about 25 grand a week by all accounts. So,
and he had a relegation clause.
So his wage isn't particularly high. So that's why it's been easier to shift him, even though it's loan with an option. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Look at Man United at the minute with Harry Maguire. They've got exactly the same issue, haven't they? You pay big money that no one else is willing to pay. You get stuck with the players, especially on these long contracts, and that's sort of what led to our downfall, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and from what I've heard as well. What I've heard as well is that we're in a different position now, where we're offering shorter contracts on lower wages with more emphasis on bonuses, and that's, I think, what Newcastle are doing more of as well now. So I think with I've got his name now, Lee Congerton was another, and Brendan Rodgers, they were just like, put him on X amount of wage, regardless if they play or not, they're going to get paid. So Yannick Vestergaard was a great example of that. 8k a week will get paid if he sits on the bench, if he plays for the under-23s. That's his position. We're now changing I don't know if you've heard the same, man, but we're changing the wage structure now. So we are doing more lower bids for younger players, and that they're going to try and build them up in terms of give them a lot more bonuses, for example, if we go up.
Yeah, James was saying something quite similar, but one thing to say, and this is what I won't do it often, but I'm going to defend Brendan Rodgers here. He should not have been given anywhere near the power he was to make these decisions in the first place. That should not be a manager's decision. That should have been the board making those decisions. So if Brendan Rodgers was given that amount of power, then I'm sorry, that's like starting to dig your own grave in the first place. But so I'm interested to see. I know a lot of people are very much rugging out and like still on the board and on their case. I'm interested to see sort of how the next year unfolds with sort of this new approach and this new sort of strategy, because I know people are going to moan about Samare, Daka, Vestergaard, etc., not being able to move them on, but that almost comes like, I know we can't move them on now, but that's because of the mistakes of previous mistakes, not what's being done now. So it's what we start doing now, and have we learned from mistakes in the past?
Yeah, and you look at the likes of Leeds, who again had a awful season last season, and now they're starting to get it together. But for years, for ages, they were loaning players out. There was all sorts of mismanagement at the pro. They didn't have a manager for ages, and Rudkin deserves slack for last season. And don't get me wrong, but he also deserves praise for what we've achieved so far. He was the person, again, director of football that helped get in Enzo. He was the player that's again looking at this new structure as well. So it's not just as cut as dry as people like to, and at times I was like, yeah, it's not good enough. Last year wasn't good enough, but when they get it right, I think people are less likely to give them their flowers as well.
You're a lot more forgiving than I am, Neil, I think, on that front. So yeah, Enzo's here and it was a good appointment. My worry is that we're going to really piss Enzo off by not backing him, not giving him the tools he needs to do the job, and that's why you see this one in, one out situation at the moment. They're struggling to get rid of players. I think John Rudkin is not the quality that we would need as a director of football. I think he's got too much on his plate, but that's just my personal opinion on him at the minute. I'd be happy to be proved wrong and is sitting on 120 points with Enzo having all of his targets that he wanted coming in.
My thing is, I'm sort of like in the middle, but it's like because they've restructured it and they've had this review, etc. I just want to give it time before I sort of jump to a conclusion of this is. It's like Neil said, it's not sort of straight down the middle. It's sort of like a bit to each side, isn't it? And you just need. I think last year probably falls massively on his shoulders because Brendan Rodgers should have gone a long time before he did. But it's just, I think. It's almost that drawing a line in the sand and saying like what happens next, because I think if we sort of just keep holding on last season over it, it's just going to be a grey cloud over and you'll never reset. I think like the reset obviously needed to come on the pitch, but it needed to come off the pitch as well. And I'm just interested to see if that's actually happened or if it's just almost PR from the club of they're saying they're doing the right things, but are they actually? So it's one that time will tell.
Yeah, you've got the same people doing the review into that that messed it up in the first place. That's the worry, and I'm not trying to be negative around it, but that's where my sort of unsureness really of the situation comes in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you said it at the time of the review, wasn't it, Mark? But it's like marking your own exam paper, but like doing the review, which I completely understood, but it's like at the same time, I just sort of want to give it a chance before I jump on it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Give it time. There was something I was going to say as well. Oh, something that I heard from somebody that worked at the club as well. They mentioned about last year they lost somebody else that was part of the. They lost somebody else that was. Sorry, Mark, I was just saw the chat now. Yeah, but thanks, Mark, and I'll leave his link down below as well. And something else I've heard that there was an assistant director of football that got a really good offer from Newcastle that left because and then they didn't replace him because those are problems that season, and he got an opportunity of a lifetime to go to Newcastle, and we didn't replace him. I don't know if that's been replaced again. I'm not too sure about that, but that was one of the reasons why there wasn't a director of football. I'm with you. Why is he doing so many jobs? Have one job, try and stick to it. As you're trying to do too much, you end up failing a lot of them.
Yeah, it's one of those, and I don't really. You sort of understand the behind the scenes a lot more than I do, really. But it's just as I say, I'm willing to give it time, and hopefully this season we get it right. We'll go back up, and I think the real litmus test will be if we go up this year, how we get on next year, and have we learned? So even if we go up this year, and I'm going to sound really negative now, and I hate the fact I am, I still feel like there's a lot of Premier League quality in this squad. But even if it hasn't gone right off the pitch, but we'll sort of carry it on the pitch, because your likes of Dewsbury Hall, your likes of obviously Callum Doyle, Connor Cody, etc. We've got very good players off, but is it enough? And it's like, I feel like it will be, just because I think there's enough quality there, but it's then about how you build on from that. But again, we'll have to give it time.
Yeah, we'll have to give it time, and we'll have to see as well. Scott's put in as well. I think it was the sports science side of things. Might have been as well. Again, I might have been wrong on that, but again, it's something that I heard just from somebody at the club around that as well. But in terms of that, I think there's a lot to cover, and I think we've pretty much covered everything. The only thing that we haven't covered, 2 players again. So we've covered Suter already, and one that we haven't covered is probably on his way out as well. Samore just looks barely played in pre-season, barely featured, and it's just gone completely quiet with him, hasn't it, Anne?
It has, and it's one of those that he was linked to some decent clubs like Napoli and that before, weren't he? But that seemed all paper talk, and I feel like you said it at the time, or it might have been James actually, but it just felt like that was his agent putting himself sort of out there. But what I'll be interested to see, say hypothetically, we get to deadline day, Suter's still here, Samare's still here, Daka's still here. Do they then get integrated back into the team, or are they left out in the cold? Because if they're left out in the cold, their value plummets.
It does, but at the same time, and the thing is, we can't really afford to let their value plummet. But I've got a feeling he'll go back, even if it was like on loan somewhere in France, just near to where his family is. I think that's what will happen. But we've heard it's been absolute radio silence.
It has, and it was so strange because he was one of the ones that I thought would go very quickly.
Mm-hmm. And you're right, but at the same time, there's still people forget as well. We could have had more to do with this season. However, there's still an element of the number of people we had in the squad and in the team. We still have cleared out 10 players, including the likes of Maddison, including the likes of Harvey Barnes. Then obviously Tielemans, Soyuncu, Uzi Perez. There's so many. There was quite a few players. Ryan Bertrand was another one as well. So there has been a massive shift this season already, and I think we're on about 10 players and then 6 players in. So there is. I think that's why Enzo's asking for a few more to kind of make up that 10-10 where we are at the moment.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's like he's setting his demands, and I think rightly so. We've got about a week left of the transfer window. I think it's going to be a busy week.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think so as well. And just on that as well, again, you mentioned Marte, Evans would be on. I'm quite glad that Evans inside a contract as well. And just on that one, feels like I think we might have a few deadline day deals. I think was it Suter was a deadline day deal, was Tete was a deadline day deal as well?
I think it was Suter and Christensen, because Tete played. No, Christensen was first. Christensen was first. Was Tete deadline day? Suter definitely was, because he was announced really late, wasn't he?
Yeah. Soyuncu was announced late. I remember Benkovic was announced on deadline day as well. But I've got a feeling the fact that we're getting the rumours now will get it hopefully sorted before deadline day.
I don't know if it's because I'm more switched into social media than I ever was before, but I seem to remember us being linked with Soyuncu about a week before the window as well. So
we didn't fully announce him because it was Benkovic was announced, the preview and everything. There was just that picture of a flag saying Soyuncu has been announced according to what's the word? The deadlines and things like that. It's called like international clearing and things like that.
Yeah, it's one of those. But we signed those two, didn't we? Because we thought Maguire could go on deadline day, which is why we ended up getting those two in early. And ironically, Benkovic was the higher rated of the two when we signed them.
Yeah, Sionchu was supposed to be the backup, but swings and roundabouts at the moment. So hopefully you've enjoyed this one as well. I was going to have a Rotherham fan on, but he decided to go on holiday, which is fair enough. I mean, why not? But yeah, we won't be able to have any shows for the Rotherham game, just to let you know, because I'll be on holiday as well. I'll be going down to London for a bit, so I might do a preview again on midweek, but I'll see you all then. And you got anything to plug away as well? Because I know you're going live on your channel in about 5 minutes as well.
Yeah, so transfer stream tonight, preview tomorrow for Rotherham. Then I'm not sure if we'll have a vlog for Rotherham or not, but there'll be the reaction and usual stuff after the game. Then Tranmere, same old on my channel.
Tranmere, isn't it? Completely forgot about Tranmere. Anyway, yeah, again, make sure you go and check out Anton in about 5 minutes' time. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for all your views as well. And I'll see you all in the next video. So goodbye.